You're listening to episode 5 of the Subscription Boss podcast series brought to you by Cratejoy with the Product Boss. In this episode, we talk about something so very important, and that is sourcing. Sourcing is a big obstacle for people, and we are giving you tons and tons of tips and resources to help you in that journey of sourcing your products for your subscription box. Also, keep in mind, we front load this episode with listing out the things that we're going to be talking about. Then as we get into the episode, we start throwing out way more ideas that we stumble upon just in chatting back and forth and digging deeper into each resource that we're talking about. So there's just tons and tons of content in here. So make sure you listen to the whole thing and jot down some notes of where you want to go further. So let's get started. Welcome to season 1 of the Subscription Boss series, brought to you by The Product Boss with your hosts and product experts, Jacqueline and Minna.
We invite you to explore the subscription box business model with us to add recurring revenue to your bottom line, plus increase your visibility.
Interested? Keep listening. Let's build together.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Subscription Boss podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline Snyder, and I am with my co-host, Minna Kunlo-Zitep. Hey, Minna.
Hey, Jacqueline.
So we're excited today to share with you sourcing secrets. We thought this would be such a valuable podcast and episode for our listeners if you're considering starting your own subscription box.
Yeah, we thought about naming this Sourcing Sorcery because we'll be wizards at sourcing, but a little bit, too difficult to explain there. So sourcing secrets it is.
And so this is something that people get stuck at, right? There are people that are creative and just can keep digging and digging and digging and find their way. And I will say that that's one of Minna's superpowers. And then there's other people that sort of want to be told, where do I go? Maybe you want a one-stop shop or one sort of platform to buy off of. And so we have a bunch of different options for you here. So Minna, maybe we could start with front loading the episode by giving them a rundown of all the points, and then we will dig into each of them.
Yeah. First, I wanted to kind of relay a point that Cratejoy had said. So when you're doing sourcing, you want to do maybe 3 or 4 months at a time. So when you're doing sourcing, so you're not getting stuck every single month, just be thinking of what can I have in upcoming boxes as well. So before we dig into that, I just wanted to give you that reminder so you can be thinking of that as we're going through this.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. So in working with your customer success manager, they actually, as they're starting to onboard you, so helping you with your pre-launch and onboarding into the Cratejoy platform, they actually have this amazing worksheet, and it's 4 months of sourcing. So basically getting your next 4 months figured out, where you're getting all your product from, the price point, the shipping details. So that way, the next 4 months are covered. I love that because an Excel sheet is so helpful, and they're organizing you for you before you ever realize that you need to do it. So let's think ahead of time. And when you're thinking of sourcing, you're also thinking of the season or the month that you're shipping in and what the needs might be for your customer at that point.
Yeah, and it's not set in stone. It could definitely be loose, but it gives you an idea of whether or not you're hitting those margins. The ideal margin for a subscription box is 35 to 45%. So keep that in mind when you're sourcing, that it doesn't really matter how much your box is. It matters how much your margin is at the end of the day. So we saw some boxes, really successful boxes that were over $100, and they have the margin built in there, and then we saw really successful ones that were, $25 to $35, and hopefully they have the margin built in there too. So really think about that as you're sourcing.
And your margin can fluctuate. And we talked about this on our episode, I think, with Julie Ball of Sparkle Hustle Grow. But sometimes you might have a better price point for yourself associated with the box for that month. It might be cheaper versus she had talked about having like a hard-covered book shipped in another box. And so actually shipping was more expensive. So making sure that you know that your margin can fluctuate. Obviously, we want you to have the best margin possible, but there might be a month that you have a more expensive product. Or if you have a more expensive product, maybe there's less things that go in the box. The other thing I want you all to think about is also having a plan B, like a backup plan. So if heaven forbid something happens with sourcing, it comes in, it's not up to quality, there's issues with deliveries, there's, whatever it is, there's a delay and you can't get it in the box, you're going to just want to have something that you know that you could back it up with. So either someone you can order from quickly to replace those items, and you should know this ahead of time, or be willing to scooch things around. So maybe if you've already sourced and you've got something for your box 3 months from now, you may have to switch it and compensate and put it into the current box. But just always be flexible and always have a plan B.
And always get a sample,
Oh, yeah.
So fits into your box, you know how much it weighs, you know what it feels like, and you know in person what it looks like. Because as we talk about, there's photos can be deceiving in a good way and in a bad way, right? So sometimes they're a different size. We had talked about how sometimes when you can't visually figure out what the size of a box is or know ahead of time, then it comes and it's like this little tiny box. I've done that so many times where I'm like,
Me
why
too.
is this such a baby box?
Like tiny box, like for pebbles. Like I don't even know pebbles. Who even collects pebbles?
Yeah. And a lot of times I'll get like toiletries. So then it's like shampoo and then they'll become, they're like tiny, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this thing, I paid $30 for this tiny little tube.
So sourcing, I think that's that's a great tip, that you want to sample it. Sometimes people will make you pay for samples, and sometimes you can get them for free, or let's say you are ordering samples and you're serious about it, you can ask them if they'll discount that sampling rate and when you get into production. So just find out, because you also might be paying for shipping, or they're paying for shipping for sampling, and it's just something that might come up in terms of your budget.
I always think of it as a cost of doing business. I never gripe over having to pay for samples, because you know what? That you're buying something from them and you want to know that you're getting it right. And I'm paying ahead of time for those samples. Even if it's like $30 or $50, I'll pay for it knowing that come time when I order that huge amount, that I'm going to get the quality that I want. So I never gripe over having to pay for samples ever.
I think there's just this misconception where back in the day when people used to source overseas, they used to get a bunch of stuff for free. They'd get like their sampling done for free, they'd get it sent, and then it would go into production. But so much happened in the sampling stage, and people wouldn't pursue the production or the sale of it, that a lot of people started charging for samples. So just make sure it's all clear up front for you.
Yeah, I feel like people think that that's synonymous with samples is free. Because when you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to sample it, in your mind, you think it should be free, but that's not the case usually. Okay, so should we front load and kind of go through how we're going to break down this episode so it can be actionable? So we kind of want to do boots on the ground versus fingers on the keyboard, right?
For sourcing.
Yeah, for sourcing. So do we want to go through the actual sources?
Yeah, let's give our lists and then
okay. So fingers on the keyboard would be like Indigo Fair, Etsy Wholesale, eBay, Google, becoming a Google whiz, and then AliExpress and Alibaba. Those are the Chinese ones. Boots on the ground would be going to actual retail stores, going to trade shows, going to wholesale districts, going to farmers markets, and really a lot of places.
Great. So let's talk about fingers to the keyboard first. So basically, you get to sit at home behind your desk, wherever you are with your computer or your phone. And this is where we're going to have you source from your computer without actually being in front of a physical product.
Yeah. So first one that I had mentioned is Indigo Fair. It's a new up and comer and it is amazing. We're go there.
In love.
We are. They have amazing packaging, and then there's a minimum. So then you have to get 24 of this particular thing. But usually it's like something that looks amazing. So it can really help with the branding of your box. So they have everything from beard oil to backpacks. That's not their slogan, but
it feels very like artisanal, right? Like it's very, yes. It's kind of like for the hipster, really cool finds. And if you're a product-based entrepreneur or business, if you had something, you could technically be selling on that platform as well, where people can source from you.
Yeah, I think it gives off that feel, because I think it is. I think it's fair trade. So you can't buy stuff on AliExpress and resell it on, Indigo Fair at a wholesale rate. So it's really cool because all the packaging is really just amazing. So you can go on there, just look for packaging ideas, or you can go on there to actually source. And they have so much stuff.
And just so everyone knows, we're going to put this list in the show notes. So don't even worry about pulling over your car and writing notes or freaking out that you're not going to remember. It is all in the show notes.
Yeah. The next one, I didn't even mention this in our list, is hubba.com. I totally forgot about this one. This one is a platform that they're bringing wholesalers, or not wholesalers, boutique owners on and merging them with brands. So they're introducing them to each other. So it's just like how those platforms where there's ones where they bring together influencers with brands. This is wholesalers with brands, so buyers with brands. So I actually put little labels on there on hubba.com, and I got somebody reaching out that had like a boutique. So like if you're a brand, you would go that route. But if you're an actual buyer for your box, your subscription box, you would go in there and look for brands that you could buy at a wholesale rate from. So all of it is wholesale pricing. So when we say wholesale pricing though, you could negotiate with them for less, or, and give them a marketing package along with it, or you could pay wholesale because sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah. So sometimes you can negotiate wholesale if you're buying a lot of units, so they'll offer bigger discounts for the more you buy. And this is not 50 to 100 pieces. Typically it's like thousands of pieces. And when you get into that amount of units, the margins also become so particular that like it might be a 5-cent margin, or 5 cents off, but that's huge. So when I get quotes in production for fashion products or fashion lines, they'll say 35 cents off or 45 cents off the more we climb, but it's a big deal when it ends up being at your retail price. So speaking of that, then another type of online platform would be Fashion Go. We actually met them in Vegas, and they are also a wholesale platform. So everyone that is starting a subscription box, you need to realize that you are now buyers. So if you're not supplying your own product in the box every month, now you're actually almost like a retail store or an online boutique where you're now a buyer and you're buying product for your box. So if you're looking for accessories or clothing, depending on what type of box you're doing, that's another option. And then they sell in packs. So, like a 6-pack of shirts would be 2 smalls, 2 mediums, 2 larges, something like that.
Yeah, they had various things on there, not just fashion, but they are called Fashion Go. Was it fashiongo.com or fashiongo.net? I will figure that out and put it into the show notes. And it was really cool. You have to get registered on there as a buyer and kind of think of yourself as someone who is sourcing every single month and really becoming the buyer of your subscription box. So the next one is Etsy Wholesale. So there is a whole different side of Etsy that's not buying direct one piece by one piece. There's a side where they actually give wholesale rates called Etsy Wholesale. So a lot of people don't know this exists, but you go on there to find Etsy buyer or Etsy sellers, for that will sell at a particular rate if you buy a certain amount. And they already have preset prices, so it makes it really easy to buy from them.
And so imagine like if you're a candle maker on Etsy, you might be selling individual candles to your customers, but then they might also be a seller on Etsy Wholesale, and they give, crate discount. So every 12, you get it for X amount of dollars. So you're buying wholesale from them. You do have to apply though. So for all of these things, you want to make sure that you're set up as a reseller or a wholesale buyer. So depending on your state or your country, wherever you are, take a look at what that is. So I know in California, you have a resale license. And Minna, you said in Iowa, it's a resale certificate.
Yeah, a reseller certificate. So then that way, a lot of times they'll ask you, do you have a reseller certificate? Then we won't charge you sales tax because you are then charging it to the end customer if that purchase was made in Iowa or whatever. So a lot there, but you get what I'm saying. Get that reseller certificate or license.
And sometimes if they don't have it, what they'll ask you for is like your EIN number, so your federal tax ID. So basically they can associate you with being a company. And so when they're doing their own paperwork, they're able to prove that they're selling it to you at no tax because you are reselling it.
Yeah, I would hesitate to do this as a DBA because your number is usually your social number. If you don't have an EIN, that means you're giving away your social number to a lot of people. So just get that reseller certificate and get an EIN. It's so easy and it's free. That way you'll be kind of a company entity on its own.
Totally.
Okay, so the next one is Googling particular keywords. So if you Google wholesale, let's say you want to find a bath bomb. So you Google wholesale bath bomb or you Google bulk bath bomb, or you Google made in the USA bath bombs, So you get the idea. You become a Googling machine because a lot of times when you're looking up stuff on Google, there's things that you can do that pull up different things because not everything is linked to specific keywords, like they're not showing up for that. So then like if you know to put quote marks in front of something, that includes them looking for the entire phrase. So if I Googled wholesale bath bomb, it would be looking for those keywords separately: wholesale, bath, and bomb. But if I put that in quote marks, it's looking for that together: wholesale bath bomb, the entire phrase. And also, maybe they don't have that word on their website and they only have bulk. So instead of doing that, you would put bulk bath bombs, or you would put reseller bath bomb. So get creative and see which things pull up. If you are already Googling wholesale bath bomb, that does not mean that you also encompass bulk and lots of, or, all those words that mean the same thing. And then also the same with like eBay. If you go onto eBay, which we didn't mention, but if you go onto eBay, you can do the same thing. You can Google within eBay and put lots of, you do know what a lot is. I feel like I'm not saying it right or something.
An LOT. So a lot,
Yeah.
not a lot,
Yeah.
of.
Like a lot is usually a box of stuff, a lot.
Also, like let's say you're ordering buttons or something like that. We talk about that in gross. So it's 144 pieces of something. So depending on where you're sourcing from or what type of product you're buying, there's different ways of bulking them together, like a bushel of,
Yes.
apples.
Google bushel of apples. So doing that on Google and on eBay, if you so choose, it could be where you're Googling it on, I said Googling on eBay, but you get what I'm saying. You're searching on eBay, just so you get the words of what people are searching for, because people phrase things in different ways, obviously, on each website, and they might not pull up for those keywords. I find so many different sources and everything simply by Googling, because that is my initial research, right?
So let's talk about that because I think people get stuck here. So what you're basically telling everyone is if you're going to do a Google search to put in quotes, for example, wholesale bath bombs, do your research, comb through the pages, and then do another search that says bulk bath bombs, right? Multiple searches.
Yeah. And then let's say you go into that bath bomb site and you realize, the one that I really like is the honey and oatmeal one. Then you put into the Google machine, wholesale honey oatmeal bath bomb, because you're searching for those words, right? So you find different sources for all of that. And so it's just giving you ideas, and you need to dig as deep as you can on these keywords because different things pop up all the time. Try not to click on the ads at the top because, well, I guess who cares? I mean, you can click on the ads. Those are the people that pop up because they're paying and not so much because they are the highest ranked keywords. They're not the most relevant, is what I'm saying. So that's a way of doing it where you can just start your initial research and you can find total gems, because a lot of those people, going back to traditional model and new model, a lot of the people that have been on the internet for a long time have established keywords. So if you're finding wholesale bath bomb, it's likely that that website has been around forever doing a lot of wholesaling. So they, because it's hard to rank for like a newbie company that you might not trust so much. But this could be a company that all they do is wholesale bath bombs. And that is true. There's so many people out there.
So, one sort of pointer and tip for everybody is depending on what kind of subscription box you're doing and what products you're putting into it, make sure that you know that they're qualifying. So for example, if you're doing a kid box that you have, whether it's choking hazards and you have warnings to that. I know a lot of kids products, there's lead testing that you have to do. So as you're sourcing, know your industry or know what you're doing so that you can ask the right questions. For example, I'm going to talk about fashion again, like kids clothing in terms or sleep clothing is flammable or not flammable. So don't just source something and think it can be kids pajamas if it's not made for that. So same with these bath bombs, or if you're going to do any sort of food product or anything like that, you just want to make sure that it's all in line. Or if you have warnings that say like may contain nuts, things like that, that we just want you to also be aware that there are also guidelines, because just pretend that you are a physical shop and treat the products you're giving your customers as if they were walking into a physical shop.
Yeah, just like the fidget spinner, right? That was so huge. And there were so many recalls from people who were buying fidget spinners because the manufacturers, some of them had lead in them.
Mm.
So, not every fidget spinner is created equal, is the lesson there.
Which is why you could buy a $30 fidget spinner or a $5 fidget spinner from like a countertop because it blew up so big. So just be aware, especially I'm going to tell you all when you're getting into like cosmetics, kid products, food items, not typical clothing, that sort of thing. Just be super hyper aware of what you need to do legally to sort of protect yourself, which would be another reason why you probably don't want to do this as a DBA, but you'll want to talk to your attorney or your CPA on how to establish yourself as a business, if not already, to protect yourself.
Yeah, definitely a good point. And also just a good reason to really do business with those legit people,
Legit. Yeah.
Right. So next one is retail stores, looking at a particular item and seeing where it's distributed from. So I used to do this back in my scrapbooking days. I used to do events and it was 300 women every single year and they would get a goodies bag. Sometimes people call this a swag bag, but each person would get it and I would put in scrapbooking items. So it would be like, different markers, different kits, different, I don't know, scrapbooking stuff. I can't even remember, stamps, things like that. And I would actually go to like Joann's Fabrics and Michael's, all those craft stores and look at the particular item and see where it was sourced from or see what brand it was. Sometimes it's a white label, just like an off, I don't know what we do, like something that doesn't have a label. So Michael's is selling it, but it doesn't have a particular brand. So you'll see that a lot with toys, distributed by blah, blah, blah. And that's because the distributor has like a ton of toys under its, distribution. And so you go there and you see, ABC distribution, and then you contact them to see where they're buying from. You can also do this at like Office Depot, Staples, any of those, because a lot of times they're buying in certain amounts and then you can just go find the distributor or find the brand that you can contact directly, because obviously they are selling wholesale because Staples or, Office Max or whatever is buying from them. So I would basically go to craft stores and I would source that stuff and I would buy 300, which they were more than happy to sell me at a discounted price.
And this would be twofold, right? So this could be boots on the ground or fingers at the computer, because if you're online and you're shopping on Michael's or what any of these places and you start to see a product that you really like, you can contact them by searching them also on the Google machine, as Minna calls it.
Yeah, I got that from Nat G.
Did you?
Yeah.
I love it. And so you can source that way. So did we talk about Alibaba yet?
We didn't. I kind of mixed those two up in order. But yeah, the reason why I said, because that's how you actually have to find them. So you first put your boots to the ground by going into Michael's, but you do have to you have to do that secondary search by actually finding their website. You don't want to, just find them in the yellow book or you want to be able to go to a website. So that if that should be your, your bottom line or whatever, your gauge. If it doesn't have a website, don't buy from them.
And now the other thing though to think about, let's talk about a big product, right? So Avery Labels, for example. If you went to averylabels.com, there may not be a place there because it's front facing to the customer for you as a wholesale buyer to connect with them. So the smaller the company is, they may have a lot of times in fashion, there's like a wholesale link, or it says like contact us or wholesale inquiries. So smaller they are, they have that. Otherwise, you're going to want to figure out a way to reach corporate. And they can be a small company still and have a quote unquote corporate headquarters to be able to contact a salesperson or to be linked to that person.
Yeah, you should actually be doing this anyways for your business, because there was one company that I found at Office Max and they did super cute little first aid kits for kids that look like monster faces.
Cute.
And I thought, you know what? I really want to do a collaboration with them. I'm going to look for their website. And so I looked up their information. I just took like a photo with my iPhone and then reached out to them later on. So it's something where, you could be doing that anyways for your business, even if you don't have a subscription box where you're sourcing, you're reaching out to them for a collaboration on like a giveaway or something, because they have something super cute that would go with your brand. So
So every time you walk out of your house basically is another place for you to source. So just keeping in mind whether you're keeping notes in the notes part of your phone, you're taking photos, which I do now. Like if someone gives me a business card or a phone number, I just take a picture of it and throw the business card away because it's literally just going to end up in like a cup in my house where I store all my other business cards. So taking photos and then making sure that you stay on top of it and organizing it. So I think the last part for the wholesale or the online type sourcing is Alibaba and AliExpress.
Yeah, Alibaba and AliExpress are the Chinese suppliers, or they're not so much Chinese. I would say 90% Chinese though.
Yeah.
But they basically connect you with the factories over there and over yonder in China. Alibaba definitely has huge minimal order quantities, so more than thousands, but AliExpress does like, a dozen or even sometimes one. So a lot of times, I feel like I'm cracking the, how, have you ever watched that episode of How I Met Your Mother where somebody tells, or when one of your friends points out something and then they ruin it for you because then you start seeing that item?
Oh, yeah.
Start seeing that thing. So one of them was like, haven't you ever noticed that Lily chews, chomps really hard when she's eating? And then, the other friend was like, oh my gosh, I never did. But now you've ruined it for me. So mentioning AliExpress, now that you know about AliExpress, you'll go on there and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I've been seeing these items everywhere. And this is where they've been sourcing them because I see that all the time, all the time. There's so many people that source from AliExpress. So be very careful what you get there, but they've got some cool stuff.
Yeah. So there's some of the feedback we've gotten from people are, again, you want to order samples because sometimes the product isn't that great. And like we said, they're coming from overseas. So you have to make sure that they qualify for do they have certificates for lead testing? Or, you just want to basically see the product and qualify it for your own customers and for your business. AliExpress, like Minna said, is smaller and the prices are a bit higher. Alibaba is sort of this bigger search tool. Whatever the case, and this is my tip, especially if you're a female, depending on the country you're dealing with, come off masculine and very businesslike. So sometimes they respond quicker to, I'm sorry to say this, but men. And
White men.
Yeah.
So if you want to put a picture of a white male on your profile pic, feel free because it's true. Being an Asian woman having to deal with Asian or Chinese suppliers, they did not take me seriously for a minute because they're just like, oh, that's my homegirl Minna, or not really.
They totally said that.
Not really. They're just like, we don't take her seriously.
But they do get a lot of inquiries. So as you're asking, ask the right questions. Make sure that you're asking the right questions and in the right way. So just to shoot you, we could actually put a link to it because I've got questions to ask at like a textile show as a freebie for a designer consulting co-op. But you guys could use these terms as well, or maybe we'll do that for our peeps in our Facebook group, that we'll do a sourcing questions. So basically the right questions to ask so that you're asking, like if they say, well, what are your MOQs? You need to know what an MOQ means, right? And that's basically the quantities, like your minimum order quantities. So if they ask you that, you might get stumped. And we just want to make sure that you're asking the right questions. So for example, oh, okay, your minimum's 100 pieces. And you might think, you get all of them for 100 pieces when it might end up being every color is 100 pieces or 100 pieces per size per color. So you just want to ask the right questions to be taken seriously.
Yeah, I've gotten stumped one time when it was it's like little punch out stars and it said 500 pieces, but they meant the number of stars in the package, not the 500 packages that I was visioning in my head. They said, yes, there's 500. You get 500. Really? Because I ended up getting 500 stars and that was not enough.
And that's like what happens even if you order on Amazon, because like when I do birthday parties and stuff like that for my kids, I'll do a lot of the, what are they called? Party favors off of it. And so the funniest thing is that Christmas this year, my sister-in-law ended up buying my son some things off of Amazon, and she literally gave him a pack of glow in the dark sticks, but like, and they were like Halloween inspired, and it was a pack of 12 these glow that were individual packages. So she thought she was buying him a glow in the dark stick, and she got 12 pack, and so all of a sudden we had like 12 packs. Oh, and same with like these necklaces for my daughter. Basically they both got 12 packs of the same.
Yeah, which would be an amazing surprise.
But it's just that depending on where you're ordering from, like knowing what you're ordering.
Yeah, for sure. And there is that communication barrier right there because they're Chinese and they might not understand exactly what you're asking. So make sure you know exactly what you're getting and that it's exactly what you want.
And the shipping, because when it comes from overseas, like you also, anything that's you're going to order, you're also going to want to know about that shipping. So landed prices, meaning sometimes if they'll import it to a certain port, for example, like the Los Angeles port, they'll tell you the price for that versus then getting it from LA to, let's see, you in Iowa. So all of these places, when you're considering buying from them, you also want to consider the shipping and the shipping costs because that's going to have to get built into your per item price and into your margin.
Yeah. So before we get into the boots on the ground section, I wanted to kind of challenge you guys to think about something. And that is one of the questions that Jack and I ask our interviewees is that, do you have a persona? So as you become a buyer, I would love it if you guys could build a buyer persona. So you are this amazing buying sourcing whiz, perhaps a wizard that does sorcery.
Yes.
I crack myself up. Sourcing sorcery or whatever that will make it fun because you know what, you do have to become a whiz at sourcing and you do have to become this buyer persona that is trying to find the perfect thing. You're on the hunt to find the perfect thing, and everywhere you go, even if it's to buy, copy paper for your printer at Staples, you need to be looking around so you can get some ideas and then kind of stuff your pipeline with amazing products that you can source.
I
Okay.
love that. So, really quick, also to jump onto that part. So, the other thing is to stay organized. So, the longer you're in business, the more you're going to gather and you're going to have to remember. If you find distributors that can meet a lot of your needs, great. Otherwise, as you start, let's say you're doing these sourcing for the bath bombs, and you might find something else. It might lead you somewhere else that you're finding like bubble bath or whatever. Grab that source, put it down, have somewhere that you're noting all of this information, like the website or whatever that you need to keep, the phone number, and what the product is. Because when you need to source 4 months from now for the next 4 months of your subscription box, you can then go back and be like, you've done this work. And these little paths are going to lead you to a whole bunch of different places. It's like me on Pinterest, like you select something and then you're like, oh, great. And then it gives you the supporting images and you select that. And you don't even know how you found yourself. Like, I found my way to hot tubs that I was like, oh, should we do a hot tub on our patio this morning? From looking at landscaping because we're buying a house. So it led me all the way there, things I didn't expect I was going to get to, which then led me to looking up the price of a hot tub. So just keep track of everything. And then if you get samples, you may also want to consider like samples for you to try and samples for you to keep as your part of your sourcing pack or sourcing area.
Yeah, I encourage you, instead of bookmarking all these on your Chrome or your Safari, instead have an Excel spreadsheet. So, name of the company, their website, the contact person, if it has it, their phone number, what item piqued your interest, and what your initial notes are. I get so many ideas. So if I stumble across a bath bomb and I get this initial idea of, oh my gosh, I love honey, honey oatmeal one, and I think I should use that for my, I don't know, my bees theme, whatever. Sometimes that idea eludes me for 4 months from now, and I can't remember why that product intrigued me. So put it in your notes. So it would be, product that interested you, and then notes would be really cool in a bee theme or whatever, or a yellow theme or whatever, spring.
And let's say you're forecasting your year or the next 6 months, and I don't know what month are we in? We're in April of 2018. So let's say you're starting this from June through the rest of the year, June through December. You could actually, and you should be planning out each month, whether it's a theme or whatever the ideas are. Maybe there's an item that you love so much that you'll put different items per month and then you're building around those items. So if you could start creating the theme to your box for the next 6 months, you'll have probably your high ticket item down to your kind of like lower ticket item. And you can put in your notes basically like, oh, this would be great for this bee theme or for spring sort of thing, like a spring box. And so that way, if you don't end up doing a bee theme box or whatever, you've got that source. So next spring, when you come back to it, you've remembered that you think this would be a good idea for that box. So you want to meet your needs. And so Minna, I was thinking too, in our Facebook group, because we have a VIP Facebook group for people. So you've heard about it and we'll tell you again. Cratejoy is offering a free 2-week trial with no commitment and no credit card required for all of you, to our listeners, to basically try the back end of Cratejoy, which we're here to fully support you in. And so in that, we also want to continue to support you through the 2-week trial via a special Facebook group that we are setting up for everyone that signs up for that 2-week trial. The way to get in to our Facebook group is by sending theproductboss@gmail.com a screen grab that you've signed up for that free 2-week trial. And so this is the bonus I'm going to offer all of you. If you do that and you end up in our Facebook group, we will have 2 really cool things in there for you. Those sourcing questions. So the list of questions to ask that are general, but you'll be able to use that while sourcing. And we'll create an Excel sheet for you with these little notes on there for you that say basically the source and the information we want you to tag and keep track of so that you can use that when sourcing. So that will be for you in our private Facebook group page if you email theproductboss@gmail.com with a screen grab that you signed up for your free 2-week trial for Cratejoy. And to get to that link, you go to our show notes.
Yeah. So just think about it. You want to keep organized because you're coming across so many products and websites and everything. So you just want to make sure that you're treating it as a legit business, just like what we said, and keeping all your information accounted for. So instead of keeping all the flyers and the business cards, you have it in the Excel spreadsheet. You know where it is. Maybe it's in your Dropbox. Maybe it's in your Google Drive. Maybe it's in your, Evernote. Wherever that Excel spreadsheet is, you know that that is your place that you keep everything. Okay, so moving on to boots on the ground ideas for sourcing. So, number one is trade shows. And we are huge fans of trade shows because they're like this little hidden gold mine of vendors, not really hidden, but small to large,
And trade shows are traditional. So if we're going to talk about traditional routes, whether you're a product-based entrepreneur and you're already attending trade shows, or if you are just sort of mulling this idea around, the trade shows have been the place that people do source. So there are these times and these gatherings that everybody in that industry gets together, flies to that location, and goes to this one place, like this convention center, where they're there to buy according to their season. So that's, when Minna and I were at Magic sourcing, basically bit different than what we're talking about. But at the same time, fashion brands were there selling their collections for fall 2018. So all the buyers knew that in that week, they were flying to Las Vegas to buy their product for the fall of the year.
Yeah, but there was actually a pool area or whatever it was called that we saw a girl that had like these fringe accessories on her shoes. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And super cute. I think it was Holly, actually. My brain is coming back to me. And she had these really cute little fringe accessories that went through her laces. And we're like, oh my gosh, where did you get that? That's so cute. And she said that she got it over at the pool. And that is where people are actually making purchases, which that vendor of that shoe accessory would be a great item to include in a subscription box if it was like a beauty box or something.
Yeah. So sometimes there's a cash and carry part, but depending on the size of the trade show, and this is the other thing to remember, especially if you're going to a bigger trade show, ask them if they have immediates. What an immediate means is that they have stock of it. So what's their open to sell, basically? What do they have in stock currently? And again, if you're a product entrepreneur, you probably have stuff in stock that you would love to clear through. And so somebody with a subscription box would come and say, hey, what do you have now that I could buy? And by now, it's not walking out of the trade show with it necessarily, but that they could ship to you in the next few weeks. And versus when you're buying at trade shows that are selling stuff for the following season, they have to still go through their production. So it's not going to be ready for you until, let's say this was in February, and not going to be ready for you until July or September of the year. So you could pre-source for some of that stuff, but the other things you need are what's more available in the next couple months.
Yeah, the reason why I love trade shows is because you can actually touch the fabric and things. So let's say you're sourcing scarves. You can actually see the different materials that you don't know a lot of times. Well, you would, but I don't know a lot of times what like rayon feels like, or polyester blend or whatever. Also, we found those swim cover-ups that were like amazing, remember? Yeah. And we got to see how like different fabrics picked up dye. So you can see things in person and feel and see the colors right there. So that's what I really like about trade shows as well.
We also found that backpack guy with like the kids' backpacks. So this guy that was selling like kids' uniforms with backpacks. And these backpacks are so cute that Mina and I in our brains were like, what can we do with these? How can we sell these? Because they were so cute. So you might not even know what you're looking for when you're walking the halls of these or these rows of the trade shows. And then you'll run into something that's just super awesome and incredible. And that's the point, right? It's this huge market for you to shop at.
Yeah, bringing up the guy that had the school uniform. So he had really cute school uniforms, and that was his entire booth was school uniforms. And then he had like maybe 3 backpacks to show. So it might not be like their main thing that they're presenting to everybody, like his was the uniforms, but it could be something that he's able to do. So his capabilities as a manufacturer is to, and he said that the minimum order quantity was like 6 or something crazy low because he's the owner of that manufacturing company and it was in Florida. So that's what's crazy is that it might be a lower minimum quantity than you think.
And so another thing, and we talk about this in the Product Boss in an episode about trade shows basically, but going in prepared. So they're overwhelming. Sometimes it's like if you go to a grocery store and you're hungry and you don't know what to buy because you need to eat everything there and you might overshop. So when you do go to a trade show, when you're actually like physically in person sourcing, sometimes it's really hard to gauge either to pull the trigger and to buy or to write a purchase order, or you might end up getting a whole bunch of stuff. So if you're prepared with that list, that sort of plan for the next 4 months or 6 months of what you need to source and the items and the price points in there, because you know how much you have to spend in your box. Let's say you have a $15 budget for your box. When you're sourcing these items, then you'll be able to break it down. Like, okay, I'm looking for a $5 item. I'm looking for a 25-cent item. You'll know what you're looking for. And then it's that shopping list. You bring your shopping list and you're able to sort of wrap your head around all the choices.
Yes, because you are the buyer. Also, for trade shows, where do you find what trade shows to go to? So let's kind of dig into some trade shows that we know of that are really big, and then where you can also look as for a directory of them. So one of the ones that I constantly hear about is National Stationery Show. I don't even know if that's called the same thing. Didn't they change their name or something?
Maybe.
Yeah, so that's in New York. It's a huge one. They don't just sell stationery, but they sell paper goods, they sell accessories, they sell a ton of stuff. That one's in New York. There's also the Las Vegas market. That's different than Magic Sourcing. Las Vegas market is just a whole bunch of everything, you know? And so looking at different directories of trade shows. So these are for people who own boutiques and gift shops usually. This is why they are on their website. So the first one is giftshopmag.com. So gift shop magazine, giftshopmag.com/trade shows. They have a list of so many trade shows that if you were the buyer for a gift boutique or a Hallmark or something, that you would go and source at these shows. So they will have different vendors of every single size. I saw some in Minnesota. There was one in London. There was a whole bunch in Atlanta, just everywhere in the nation. And they basically have the directory of those. So the first one is giftshopmag.com/trade shows. We'll have this in the show notes. And the second one was greatrep.com/tradeshows.aspx. Obviously super hard to remember. That will also be in the show notes. And I came across those, you know how? By my fingers on the keyboard, Googling the heck out of it. Yes, exactly. And so trying to find those trade shows and being in person with them, that is so important to finding people you can connect with and brands, little brands that are trying to make a name for themselves. And also you might just find somebody like that backpack guy that just has the capabilities to do something special that you want him to do.
So again, that Googling, let's say wholesale trade shows for something that it is, like wholesale trade show cosmetics, wholesale trade show stationery, wholesale trade show kids fashion or kids products, or wholesale trade show toys, for example, because all of these things happen. The other thing is, depending on the city or country that you're in, if you have a convention center next to you, or the convention center in the downtown area where you live, you can actually go to their site and look up what shows are coming. So oftentimes they'll have like a calendar for their year of all the shows that are going to be coming in and out of there. Some of them will be, for Star Wars conventions, which is not where you necessarily need to go unless you're a Star Wars box. But other ones will be sort of like these roaming markets that travel and aren't so specific to a big place. So for example, we had clients a couple clients were in the Southern Women's Show. So it's for Southern women's like entrepreneurs. And we had a couple clients of booths there. So if you know about that show, for example, then you can follow where they end up around the country, because sometimes they are going to a bunch of different Southern cities. And then depending on if that city is close to you or worth the travel, you can go out there.
Yeah. Even if, let's say, going back to your Star Wars convention thing, it's fun to go there because you see a bunch of ways that people creatively bring something to a theme. So, like the Star Wars ones, sometimes people piece together different costumes that are not actually Star Wars, but they are inspired by Star Wars. And it's just like this sword or that mask. I have no idea about Star Wars and this total.
Okay, so how about Legos? Because my son's obsessed with Legos. So to do like a Lego convention has to be branded by Lego. But we went to a bricks convention in Pasadena in California, and it was bricks. It was all Lego fanatics, but it wasn't, let's say, Legos branded convention. And the cool thing there that I thought was awesome, and for my son, and they were like easy entry items, was there were people that had an engraving machine right then and there, and on the little Lego people, they could write your name, a number. They could basically like personalize the body of the Lego person. And or you could, Lego does this in their store, but you could put together the different bodies. So if you did a kids product, you might want to go to some of these shows, because then there might be someone there doing some sort of off-branded type item that could be added to your box.
Yeah, it's great for ideas, creative ideas, because trade shows really bring out the creativity in people for sure. And then they're trying to fit into a theme, whatever that trade show is. So then you can really take something of that industry and bring it to your box and have it be really cool. And you're meeting people that have those capabilities, like I said. So if it's something special, like engraving a Lego, perhaps if your box was something else, not a Lego one or not a kid one, they could be engraving, I don't know, like a a backpack or something. I don't know.
Yeah, like personalized embossing, or maybe you give them their own iron-on type thing to do if that personalization is really in. So what would be another boots on the ground idea?
So I totally forgot to mention this in our fingers on the keyboard section. I wanted to mention it before I forget, is that a lot of times I've found people by going to hashtags. So if you go to a hashtag on Twitter or on Instagram, I usually do on Instagram, and go to hashtag market. So hashtag market or hashtag wholesaler or hashtag wholesale or hashtag small business week, you can find small brands that have done those hashtags and that you can reach out individually. So it's super easy to find people who are, one, if you do hashtag market, you can find, I found that's how I knew there were so many people in Atlanta. They have so many marketplaces that they actually have venues that are for those markets that had Instagram actual profiles. So I was like, oh, that's cool. So they can tag themselves in that location. And so digging, Googling via hashtag, it's not really Google, but you get what I'm saying. Hashtag on Instagram. Searching, yes. It's like synonymous for me when I Google. It's just like, searching. But if you put in hashtag small business week or hashtag Mother's Day gift, you might come upon a brand that's trying to do a Mother's Day sale or is part of doing small business week,
So I love this idea. So we're all small businesses and we're all trying to get out there. And we've talked about this where people say that they're going to market their business by going on social media. So now you're on that other side where they're looking for people to buy their product. So I love that concept of like following smaller brands, finding people, like if you hashtag, activewear, you're going to get the big ones, but you're also going to get the small ones. And when you follow someone, if you guys don't realize this on your Instagram, when you follow, there'll be a bunch of like suggested follows right below that following. And so you could follow them. And so what that does is it leads you to these, like, they've also got their keywords that similarly liked people. And you might be able to find other brands there. And actually, I follow a lot of activewear people on Instagram because a lot of my clients are in activewear. And probably most of the follows I have are that. And I found it by basically that tree of like, I followed Aloe Yoga, which led me into this person, which led me to that person. And so I'm able to keep my finger on the pulse of that. Now, on Instagram, as we know, if you ever need to really fully complain on an airline and you tweet them or Facebook them or Instagram them your complaint, they get back to you pretty quickly. It might be the same thing on social media. So if you're finding a brand that you love and you can contact them at them, whatever it is on social media, mention them, you might actually be able to connect with them much faster than trying to find their email address.
Yeah. And think out of the box a lot for this too. Like, for instance, if you find a hashtag that leads you to, let's say you find a bath bomb person on Instagram. Well, we keep going back to this bath bomb example, but so let's say you have a Star Wars box, Star Wars inspired box, and you're trying to do a bath bomb.
Oh
And
my God. A black, like Death Star
yes,
one.
there's
Yeah.
ones that are like Black Galaxy ones and stuff like that. So you could have that. And it's just a creative way to flip a bath bomb idea. So it's like Black Galaxy or Darth Vader inspired one. Or gosh, you get what I'm saying.
She's like, whoever else those bad guys are.
Yeah, I was trying to name off some Star Wars stuff. So you kind of flip the idea. So you're finding like the brand or the manufacturer that can do small batch stuff, let's say, and making it into an idea that can be contributed to your subscription box, because then therein lies the exclusivity, right? Mm-hmm. They're only going to get that Galaxy bath bomb in your box because you created that with the brand owner, but you had to buy 200 of them, let's say.
So there is so much information in this episode about sourcing, because I think Minna and I could talk forever. So this is another thing I wanted to bring up before we get to the rest of the boots on the ground options. we were talking about branded items versus unbranded, right? So sometimes, and do you want to talk about that now or later?
Oh, we can talk about it now.
Okay. So for example, if you're buying, let's go to the idea of erasers. If you're going to buy erasers off of AliExpress and they're going to send you a 500 pack of erasers, and you're going to divide out those erasers and putting one in each box, you might have to repackage that. So knowing that that's going to go into your cost, and that you might have to source something like a little like what are they called? Lip and peel?
Lip and seal. I'm sorry. Lip and seal.
I peel them.
They're also called cello bags, C-E-L-L-O.
So thinking about what kind of bag, and you can get a lot of these things on like uline.com and other places online. But nonetheless, you want to think about how you're going to repackage, because you might not just throw it into the box, right? It needs to be in some sort of self-contained item. Now, back to the bath bomb idea. Minna, I think you were saying that some places that you source from, you might even be able to do branded things. So if you were, let's say your box was called the Bath Bomb Lady.
I like it.
Thank you. Or She Da Bomb.
I like it even more.
Thank you. You were saying that you could then brand it like the She Da Bomb, like Death Star.
Yes.
Bath bomb.
If you buy a certain amount and you work it out with them, then you can get your own label on there. So this is kind of private labeling 101. Basically, you can also do this where a lot of people will take, like, let's say bath bombs, put it under their brand and sell it at flea markets. They didn't manufacture that themselves, but they know it's artisanal made. They know it's small batch. They just are not doing it themselves, So super smart, because they know what sells at a flea market or whatever, but it's the same idea. You're taking that and putting it towards your, subscription box, because you are the buyer, just like that buyer is basically selling at a flea market.
I was just going to say, so there's a difference, right? So if we talk about like Sparkle Hustle Grow, for example, with Julie Ball, she has products in there, like office supply products for people. She might actually have Post-its in there, because she's giving you cute, maybe they did some cute sort of flower Post-it or whatever, and she's giving you that. I actually have on my desk, she did a whole Pinterest box one, and I have the cork board on my desk with the little pins, and she had given a little mailer, which we can get to, but of like a little class on how to do pinning, for example. These were branded by the other companies. It wasn't Sparkle Hustle Grow brand. So for you, depending on what your product, you have to think about all this when you're developing your subscription box. For example, like if you're a makeup box, you might be sampling a bunch of different makeups. It doesn't have to be from your brand. So just thinking about how you're going to package it within the box. Does it come in its own packaging? Does it have a brand attached to it? Are you going to brand it for yourself? Keeping all of this in mind. I used to subscribe to a kids box, and basically they were getting items from lots of big companies. Like I was getting to sample big companies' items. And so one of the things I got was like a t-shirt from a kids line. And it just came in the packaging, like it was in a cello bag folded, but they actually had a little card in it that said, you get 25% off. Actually, I think the card was extra that was thrown in, but you get 25% off this product. So sometimes you can also do deals with these brands you're working with that maybe they're going to offer it a little bit discounted to you, or you can offer them an option of also putting in a discount code for your customers.
Yeah, super smart. When Julie and I did that episode for the Product Boss with her interview in Sparkle Has to Grow, she said that you never know what you're going to come up with in the negotiations. So, but a lot of times you will not get anything free. So just know that it'll be somewhere between, a discounted price and wholesale typically. Unless you are a huge subscription box brand and you can actually, garner those visibility points and be like, hey, we get 3 million eyeballs on this every single month, or whatever.
And we
Something where you're
send
able to, yeah.
like
You're able to
1,000 out a month. Yeah.
Yes, if you're sending out so many a month, this is what FabFitFun does, right? They get brands to completely create something new for them, and I bet you those brands pay next to nothing. Some of them are get paid next to nothing, or they pay to be in there. So it's just the flip side of the model because you're able to offer them something else rather than the actual cost of the product.
So let's talk about some other places to go.
Yeah. So thinking about boots on the ground, what about wholesale districts? This is something so foreign to me, but I'll let Jacqueline talk about this because it's very prevalent in bigger cities.
Yeah, so I actually grew up in this world, just being in downtown Los Angeles and the world that I came from. So in downtown LA, there are wholesale districts where there's a wholesale toy district. There's wholesale. I told Minna there's like a whole party section where you could buy things for quinceañeras, weddings. There's a whole piñata area where you can get, piñatas and all the things that go in it. So you can buy like 12 packs, 24 packs of bouncy balls and candy and all that. So I don't know in New York because if you've listened to this podcast, I'm bi-coastal between both coasts. In New York, sometimes there's not a lot of space. So the stores aren't as easy to get to, or there's not as many wholesale stores just sort of within the city. In downtown Los Angeles, there are. So there's clothing sections, there's toys, there's places where there's wholesale shoes. There's even like wedding sections where there's things for events and, tiaras and veils and all that. So take a look at the town that you're in or the next big city over and see if there is an industry there. To go back to the trade show idea, and just from my background in fashion, you get trade shows in Los Angeles, San Francisco, typically. Sometimes in the Northwest, like the Seattle, Washington type area, especially depending, because there's like Nike's up there. So there's a lot of like outdoor type trade shows, for example, up there. So depending on what the industry is in the town. So that's the West Coast. And San Diego has some conventions, but let's say LA, San Francisco, and a little bit in the Northwest. Then Texas, so Dallas has trade shows. So there's actual trade shows for fashion there. And thinking about that, like Neiman Marcus, for example, is based in Texas. And so then there's a trade show close to where they are. There's also, like you said, Atlanta trade show. There's a actual buildings. Thinking about furniture too, if you look up furniture wholesale, basically what they are, they're marts. Like it's a marketplace or a mart. So there's we used to call it the it's the LA Apparel Mart or Fashion Mart now, California Apparel Market Center. I don't know. They keep changing their name, but there's different market centers like that. So whether it's for furniture or fashion or accessories, there are some buildings in certain cities. So and then New York, obviously, don't know so much about in the Midwest, but like you said, Chicago, I'm sure there are these big towns that people are going through that you'll be able to find all this. And then maybe there are wholesale vendors there. Like I'm in New Jersey now, and I think there's like a wholesale rug vendor. There's the further out you get, there are special businesses that are everywhere.
Yeah, there's a lot in Minnesota because there's Target up there, the headquarters for Target, there's Staples Center. The funny thing is when I was walking the floor at Magic Sourcing, there was a whole bunch of vendors from Minnesota. And I would say, hey, neighbor, because, being from Iowa and just the bordering one. So it was just kind of fun to see where the industry is really coming from.
Totally. So that covers the wholesale market. You just need to know the place that you're in. And we have a client that sources for her own retail boutique, and she flies to LA to source.
Yeah. So it just might take going to those bigger cities that really bring in those people. So the last one that we have is those more little connecting places. So farmers markets, vendor fairs, craft fairs, art walks. You had mentioned some pop-up places like Unique LA and in Brooklyn and everything, right?
Yeah, so there are some cool places, and it depends again on the city you're in and who's decided to develop this. But let's say in Los Angeles, there's Unique LA. It's an artisanal market. So basically, it's for handmade. It's basically bringing Etsy to people in real life, and they usually have their show around the holidays, and there's like sometimes a spring fair, that kind of thing. I think she used to travel also and do it in New York or LA. Now she actually has weekly markets in downtown LA. I used to live in Miami, and Miami has Art Walk. I know downtown LA has Art Walk in Brooklyn. So there's always farmers markets in your local areas. So looking at the weekends and what's happening, because think about it. Think about all the people that are showing up there trying to sell their product. Yes, you're going to get the farmers, but then you're also going to get someone who sells the cool sugar scrubs or candles or scents or jewelry, and they are trying to sell. And if they could all of a sudden meet somebody local that has a subscription box that goes out nationally or globally, they would be so excited as you would to meet someone like that that could say like, I'd like to buy 100 of those from you. I'd like to buy 500 of those from you. Imagine if they could find that, then they'd be like, heck yes, I'm going to buy that from you, or I'm going to sell that to you. And then that way you're connecting. So it's just a way to connect and find things that you wouldn't be able to find because they might not even be selling to stores. It might be something they do themselves. I will warn though, if you do meet these smaller businesses at these markets and fairs, you do need them to be able to supply whatever you're asking them for, right? So like 100 pieces of something, 500 pieces of something, you need them to sort of prove that to you. So you're going to want to ask them their lead times and see if they've ever sold, find out how much they've ever sold wholesale. Because when you're working with someone that works from home and maybe does hand poured candles, who knows if they really can keep up with what you're asking for. So just be very clear with them.
Yeah, for sure that they have the capabilities. In a way, you're asking them to become a manufacturer, and that might not be something that they're ready for sure. So when I went to Chicago to visit one of my friends, he had moved there and I had stumbled upon the Renegade Craft Fair and I was in awe. There is nothing like that here in Iowa. And it was this huge craft fair and they had so much stuff. That would be a great way to source and meet specific people that could do something even in my theme that I'm doing. So, Renegade Fair, I think it's not inexpensive to be a part of. So you know that those are probably some legit people. And then also, they will give you an idea. It's easier to ask them, hey, do you do wholesale? Or are you able to give me an order of, 200 candles in person rather than calling and trying to connect with them because you have them right there in person.
And here's a bonus tip for as you grow. So if you start to get bigger and you have a ton of subscriptions per month, and we're talking hundreds to thousands, you may be able to collaborate with a bigger business. So like you might have some out of reach or like people that you hope one day you could source from that they may not sell to you right now, or you might want to do collaboration. So let's just say Mina and I, we like the Tone It Up girls. They have their own sort of workout program and now they have their own product and it's in Target, for example. If they were reachable and we were a big enough, let's say, workout subscription box, we may be able to reach out to them and say, hey, we'd love to do collaboration with you two on this thing that's going to end up in our box. So it could be a product that they can supply. It could be a product that you do that will be co-branded with them. Or it could be something that's easier where maybe they do a workout class just for your subscribers. And it would have you'd put a card in that has a special download for your subscribers only. So that's a way too to reach kind of like bigger people or service-based people that it might even be a download or a link to or something that you're able to put in the box, but it's not a physical product.
Yeah, much easier to do when you have a lot of subscribers, but I love the idea. I love the idea of collaborating with other people because then you're pulling from more than just your audience because they're like, hey, I was featured in this. We actually came up with a really cool bath bomb. Remember that bath bomb I told you about? It was a dupe of Chanel number 5. How freaking cool is that bath bomb, right? It lends to like this wonderful luxe feel and idea to it. So something like that. If I had a bath bomb named after me, that was like the Mina bomb. That would be cool.
You are the Mina bomb.
I wouldn't mind that. So something we keep going back to the bath bomb idea because it's so simple, right? So it's something that's versatile, and then you can take that idea and really play into the theme that you have going on for that month, and then sourcing just a whole bunch right at the beginning.
And let me tell you why we're on top of this bath bomb idea. When you start to see things in TJ Maxx or Target in like their dollar bin, that means it went from being something that was like kind of a special product to all of these big marketplaces knowing, or vendors knowing, that this was a big thing, that everybody wanted bath bombs. It's the new trend, let's say, in bathing, right? Versus like scrubs or whatever, bubble baths, whatever it is. That's the trend right now in that. And they're a low ticket item that you can sell, but there's also really expensive ones too, right? So also, if you're going to be this subscription boss and have your own box, you want to sort of pay attention to these trends. You want to see when they start to hit like discount stores, it's not that it's at the end, but it's going to the masses. So just keeping your finger on the pulse of what's happening within the category and what your customers are asking for.
Yeah, the crazy thing is that when I was sourcing for those goodie bags for my scrapbooking show, I was on top of everything. Like I knew what trends were going to come out. I knew Chevron was going to come out before Chevron got really big, you guys. I'm not even kidding. So that's something where I could have, repackaged something in a Chevron design or whatever else. Because when you're sourcing, you are kind of right at the cusp of those trends, and you can really just be the person that brings the trends to your subscribers. So it's really cool because even those bath bombs, for instance, they sell them at Hy-Vee. So I don't know if you guys know what Hy-Vee is, but it's in the Midwest and it's a grocery store. So when it is in the grocery stores or at Whole Foods or whatever, and you're able to do things in a creative way, it just is really cool. So like if any idea that you can kind of bend and collaborate on, it would be just such a contribution to your subscription box to be able to collaborate with other people on this brilliant idea of showcasing them and showcasing yourself too.
I love that. So remember, we are here to support you. All the notes are in our show notes for you to take a look at if you need to go back to any of these vendors or fairs or marketplaces. And we're so glad that you joined us on this episode of The Subscription Boss.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody, and good luck sourcing. Just a quick reminder, guys, make sure you sign up for Cratejoy's 2-week free trial during the special Subscription Boss series. It goes until May 25th, and this way you can tap into Jacqueline and my knowledge to help you during this time of adding a subscription box revenue stream to your business. You can find more info or sign up at www.theproductboss.com/cratejoy.